Well, for more, we're joined from Edinburgh by Rachel Rankin, tutor in Scandinavian studies and translator at the University of Edinburgh. Thanks for joining us.
Hiya. And
we're also welcoming by telephone from Bergen, not too far from where Jon Fosse was born 64 years ago. Solrun Iversen, the director of the oldest national theatre in Norway, Den Nationale Scene. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
First off, have you been in touch with Jon Fosse this Thursday?
Only by text message so far. I've been thinking about him a lot, and I think he has a busy day. And I've also spent the day congratulating other colleagues because we all feel so just grateful and very, very proud that Jon Fosse is finally getting this recognition. So it's been a day of joy for Norwegian theatre, actually.
Finally getting this recognition because for years his plays did not break out of Norway.
No, they did not. He did have a kind of a slow start, but that was also part because of his reluctant way into the theatre. He actually did have his debut on the national stage in Bergen in 1993, but thanks to thanks to French theatre and a lot of dedicated translators around the world and directors that has been staging his plays. He's now very much a world phenomenon, both in literature and drama.
To the point, and I'll bring in Rachel Rankin, where he was a name that's been bandied about for several years as a possible Nobel Literature Prize winner. Tell us why.
I think I found it interesting that he said that because as someone who works in Scandinavian literature and to someone who has many colleagues who work in Scandinavian literature, it did seem to be a matter of when will be the year that Jon Fosse will win. So it was quite interesting to hear that he's been in talks for about 10 years. And I think he's probably, been in consideration for such a long time because his writing and his writing style is just so, it's fascinating to read. It's incredibly, it's almost quite difficult to put words to how it feels to read it. It's very kind of stripped back and minimalist.
Well, let me ask you then this way. This comparison with Samuel Beckett, whose pregnant pauses on stage are famous, and the chemistry and the distance or closeness of the characters. Is that a fair one?
I think it is a fair one. I know that Jon Fosse, I believe, has also cited Samuel Beckett as an influence as well. And I think when you experience his plays, when you kind of engage with his work, I think that influence really does come across. Repetition to the point of it being almost absurd, but quite profound at the same time. I think it's a very fair comparison. Yeah.
And they're translated from Norwegian, or should we call it, how do you pronounce it, Nynorsk?
Nynorsk.
Nynorsk. Explain to us what is Nynorsk and why Jon Fosse writes in it.
Well, it's the Norwegian language situation is a very complex beast, but to put it quite simply, there are two standards of the Norwegian language. There is the majority standard known as bokmål, which is spoken by the majority of the population of Norway. And then there's the minority standard, Nynorsk, spoken by, I think, between 10 and 12% of the population, including Jon Fosse.
Is it the same language or is it different?
It's mutually intelligible. It's the same kind of two standards of the same Norwegian language. So they're mutually intelligible, but Nynorsk has its own grammar. It is quite distinct from bokmål in different ways. So it is... if you learn Norwegian or if you know Norwegian, you can read both, but it isn't quite the same. So, yes.
Why does this? And of course, Bergen is on that same west coast, and you mentioned it, Solrun Iversen, the fact that he performed at your theater when he was a younger man, Jon Fosse. The fact that he's writing in Nynorsk, what does that mean to you?
It means quite a lot, actually, because the distinction between Nynorsk and bokmål is also very much a question of identity and region, and also very much a question of national independency in a way. And for Jon Fosse to write in Nynorsk has given him a lot of the formal significant distinctions that we know his style for, but it also places him very soundly and directly in this region, the Western Norwegian region. So what we maybe experience as something very specific and local even has given Jon Fosse a language where he can evolve his distinct style, and at the same time also be in some way in a dialogue with the people and the landscape of the Western region. So it means a lot to us and to a lot of other Norwegian theaters.
Solrun Iversen, when you think of famous Norwegian playwrights, of course, Henrik Ibsen comes to mind, the 19th century great, who was a man of his time, changing times. How does that, again, that comparison, in what way is Jon Fosse a man of today's times?
I think Jon Fosse is much more a man of today's times because of the way his writing runs across time in a way, and his renewal of style, and also the way he pushes theater forward in a way is his way of being in his time, whilst Ibsen actually, even though he did renew a theater style, also did a lot of problematics that were more politics or actual problematics. For Fosse, he's very much deeply into the universal being in a way, and a lot of his plays as well as his novels runs across time and say something about what it is to be a human being.
Rachel Rankin, what do your students see in Jon Fosse?
I think generally it's just a sense of this is something I've not really read before. It's a very interesting sense because obviously he's written plays, as we've spoken about here. He's also written in many other genres as well. He's written poetry, he's written novels, he's written children's books as well. So there's this sense of someone that's incredibly prolific. As Solrun was saying, you know, someone that really kind of taps into the human condition and what it is to be human, someone that allows you to meditate on you know, your own sense of self, I suppose. It really is just kind of generally unlike anything that they've really read before. It's exciting.
There is been, over the last 2 decades, this huge surge in interest in literature that comes from Scandinavia. This, I guess, is a nod to that as well. Why is that?
I think it's an interesting question. I don't think there's any one reason for it. I think it's particularly interesting that we've finally, well, after almost 100 years, the last Norwegian laureate was in 1928. So we've finally come around again to getting another one. And I think it's really interesting that when we think of Scandinavia or we think of Norwegian literature, the one thing many people will think of is crime novels, for example. We think of crime series, we think of Jo Nesbø, for example. And I think there's been a real interest in Scandinavia, you know, not just literary-wise, but also politically, you know, policies that maybe travel may be interesting to other countries to examine as well, which has also fed into an interest in the literature there. But I think it's really interesting that, you know, there is an awful lot of really interesting, innovative work being done in Scandinavia or in Norway. And I think it's really exciting that Jon Fosse has finally won the Nobel Prize, because it shows that, yes, Norway does crime novels and crime literature very well, but we also do this very innovative and fascinating, just really fantastic work as well. So, yeah.
So, Solrun Iversen, to have the Nobel Literature Prize go to a writer who is from that rural part of Western Norway, not too far from Bergen, where the national scene is. What will it mean for your part of the world?
I think it will mean that we will be a lot more, that we will have this thought of sense of proud, absolutely. But I think also that most people in our Western region or even in Norway, we all know Jon Fosse in some way, but maybe this can be a chance to really embrace the total of his work and not just the one or two titles that most people know. And I also think that in a way we will remember that a local voice, something that is so recognizable for us, can also be very relevant and recognizable for everyone else. And I just talked to some colleagues today, and I said, I feel like we have wind in our backs because of this. So we stand proud and very, I think, have a greater sense of what one specific voice can do, not only for the region but also for the universal quality of the art.
Yeah, for humanity, which is the subject matter of his plays. Solrun Iversen, many thanks for joining us from Bergen. I want to thank Rachel Rankin in Edinburgh. Stay with us. There's much more to come here on France 24. More news, plus today's business and sports.